Welcome to the Mindset on Resilience podcast. I am your host, Daniel Truelove, and I am excited for the guests that we have for you all today. Listen, as you know, we're here to build a more resilient, confident, and mentally strong community, and the guest that we have is going to do just that. She's a powerhouse, dynamic, somebody that I am grateful and honored to be able to call a colleague and a friend of mine. She is a game changer. Listen, when I tell you all, she is dynamic in every single way. Listen, I don't want to go too far, but let's just say this: she is a principal. She is runs a school that is a state school of character, a national school of character. Hold on one second. Not just state, but also a national school of character. And she does it with grace. She does it with class, and she also does it with a smile. If you know her, you know she's going to have her words that she has for the week. And I think when we got on this call, she said, "Was it Terrific Tuesday?" I think today was a terrific Tuesday. So I am excited and honored to bring to you all none other than Dr. Atkins. How you doing today?
I am awesome. Terrific Tuesday. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Even better now that we're on the line with you. So it's even better day now.
Thank you so much. I'm super thrilled to be here. Always excited to connect with you, my awesome brother.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't even, throw in one other thing that I should have thrown in there. You're a dynamic speaker too. Yeah, hold on. Let me pull it back a little bit. I can't tell everything just now, but I'm excited for this conversation and for us to, dive into learning a little bit more about your history and your journey, because you have done a lot of amazing things. So, let's start right here. Like, what was your journey to becoming a principal? Like, what type of stops did you have and roles did you have along the way?
Well, believe it or not, ever since I was a little girl, I have always, and I do mean always, dreamt of becoming a teacher. And so I have a large family. So I have five siblings. My parents had three children, took a 7 year break, had three more. So as my older siblings started to settle down and get married and have children, I became an aunt at the ripe old age of 9. And so my niece became my very first student. And so I just remember being in fourth grade. I would get the old textbooks from my teachers. My parents brought me a chalkboard back in the day with the erasers that you had to pat together to get all the chalk out of it. And so I have a younger sister. She and I are 2.5 years in age difference. And so between my niece and my sister, they were my first students, and that was literally just a lifelong dream that honestly, it never went away. Growing up, girls want to be nurses and teachers, and the guys want to be police officers and firefighters. But as life happens, your perspective changes a little bit, but mine never went away. And so I ventured from the good old city of Selma, Alabama, to Tuscaloosa, and I attended the university and obtained my teaching degree, a bachelor's degree from the university. Started teaching immediately, middle schoolers. Absolutely fell in love. And so from there, I thought my path was going to lead me to the collegiate route. And so I obtained my master's degree. But then, once your faith starts kicking in and God starts speaking to you, you have one path, and the Lord is like, wait a minute, you funny, you cute. That's not what I have set up for you. And so, with that, I started considering administration, because after having been a teacher for almost 8 years at the time, I started assuming those leadership roles. So, teacher, leader, content, grade level chairperson, all the things. And so I was thinking, you know what? I love what I do. I love having an impact on my students. And so now I want to take that to an actual school, because right now my reach is within the parameters of my classroom. And from there, I went ahead and obtained my doctorate degree and then my instructional leadership certificate. And literally, as soon as I finished, I landed an assistant principal position in a phenomenal school. And then 3 years later, I became a principal. And 4 years later, here I am.
Oh wow. Wow, wow. Okay. So your journey talked about 8 years in the classroom at a middle school, and you made an interesting statement. You said, I fell in love with middle school. Okay, so so, uh, so middle school is that, that age to where, they're growing, teenage years, a lot of different things. Why middle school?
And that's a great question, a question that I've asked myself over and over and over. And every I feel educators who truly have a zeal for what they do, they have their niche, right? And so for me, I always now, transparently speaking, now I have 11 nieces and nephews, and I love every single one of them. But dealing with a little snotty nosed child all day long, woo, Lord knows that wasn't my calling. So I just knew elementary school just wasn't gonna be my thing. And so when I started thinking, and honestly, I'll be transparent. I was doing my getting ready to do my internship at the university, and by that time I had several different placements because they try to give you exposure. So my undergraduate degree is in 612, so I knew I would be in secondary world between sixth grade and 12th grade. And so it was one of those things where it was like, God, place me somewhere where I can truly see myself thriving and enjoying. And so after I prayed that prayer, my internship, ironically enough, was at a high school. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm thinking, okay, this is it. Well, now fast forward, it's time to start applying for jobs. That prayer came right back to the surface. Wherever you lead me, that's where I would go. And so my first position was teaching eighth grade. And by the time I got immersed in middle school, and now I wouldn't have it any other way simply because that's such a pivotal moment for our students where we don't even realize, elementary things are cute, we're coloring and all the things. And make no mistake about it, they are still experiencing life challenges and all the things. By the time you get to high school, especially at a certain age, you pretty much kind of know your path. And I just felt, and this is me speaking personally, if I can connect with one middle schooler and just plant a seed of positivity or expose them perhaps to something they've never seen before, I felt I could truly change a life and have more of an impact in that regard. And then just pray that they would continue to meet others in their future that would water the seed that has been planted. And when I tell you, I do say, call me crazy because people like middle school, going on 17 years in middle school. And I wouldn't have it any other way because they are at such a pivotal moment in life where they need people outside of their close circle, their close knit family and community, to pour into them and truly invest in them and expose them to things that they haven't seen before to set them on the right path. And so that's why I chose middle school. Well, you know what? I take that back. That's why middle school chose me. Oh.
I already knew you were gonna. I knew you were about to switch that up. I heard it coming. I heard it coming. But I want to connect two things because you mentioned that earlier on that you always wanted to be a teacher, and now we're talking about your choice of middle school. And one thing that I hear right now is a lot of passion and zeal for the work that you do. To be in this field for 17 years, but still, some people might be like, no, I'm on my way. Like that's not you. Like you can tell that that fire is still there. But I think that kind of goes to that. This is something that you've always wanted to do. Why teaching? Why education?
Well, for me, and I don't have that history where I could say, well, my mom was an educator, my grandmother was an educator. I'm literally the first in my family. And so again, when I started learning about careers growing up, it was just one of those things that I could do. They call me bossy growing up, so I could just tell people what to do. And so when the more I started learning and truly, and I'm going to be honest, studying my teachers, because I remember as early as second grade, I was watching their mannerism, I was watching the poise that they had, and just an air that they carried about themselves. When I was in fifth grade, we had co-teachers, and they, ironically enough, their names were the Moody sisters. Their last names were Moody. So, and they weren't moody though, but they were just pristine, distinct ladies. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they're absolutely awesome. And I truly, even at the tender age of 10, I started thinking about the impact that they were having on me. And I was just like, I want to do this for somebody else. And so the more I explored other, in my mind, that is, other career paths, nothing just resonated with me. I was teaching Sunday school at church. And so it was just one of those things where it was like, this is it. This is where I want to be. And once I plunged head first in, I was all in. So I'm all in.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. But that just lets you know the value and the impact that educators have. The fact that you were second grade, 10 years old, and you're already saying that, hey, that's what I want to do. You know, educators make an impact on everybody. I mean, there's no individual, no matter what career you are, that is not impacted or in contact with an educator. So make sure that you have an amazing impact, and who knows, maybe the next one is coming from your classroom. So I love it. I love it. So now you said that you went from there, your journey to administration after being in there for 8 years. You started like, I want to, impact at a greater level. Now you said after you got your degree, was it after you got your degree? Did you got your, you became an assistant principal? Is that correct?
So I taught for 9 years after having got my bachelor's and master's degree. And then I obtained my doctorate degree. And then shortly after that, I obtained my instructional leadership certificate. And literally, I finished that program in May. I had an assistant principal position in August. So as soon as I finished the instructional leadership program, I became a school administrator.
All right, awesome. So was it what you thought it was going to be? Hey, my impact. I'm looking to do this, and bam, you got the title AP. Talk to me.
You know that position, my God, today. But I will say this: having a phenomenal principal made that position what it was for me, because a lot of times when people think of the role of assistant principal, they connect it solely with being the disciplinarian of the school. And while that was the bulk of my role, I was also exposed to the other entities that comes with being an administrator, learning the logistics and financing and networking with families and extending beyond to the community and all of the stakeholders, and learning truly how to build a robust curriculum and program within the school. So it was a lot. And it was a lot in that, as a teacher, you have this carved out time where, you're going to go and you're going to eat lunch in the cafeteria. You're going to have your planning period where you could just woo saw. When you become an administrator, the woo saw become woo. Where is the time going? So those were some things that I was just like, oh my gosh, it's constantly, it's ongoing. Parents, there's something that needs to be done, a fire that needs to be put out, so to speak. And so you don't have that carved out time each day. So those were some of the shock factors. But I will tell you being able to matriculate about that entire building all day long and touch every single student in some facet or another, it was like, this is it. I get to see every single student who walks through these halls. I get to interact with them every single day, and to me, that's what it was all about. And so it wasn't what I expected, in that, it was just on the go. But if you're organized and you have structure, you can curtail all of that. But it was everything I imagined it to be, in that I really do have the ability to impact and change every life in this building.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing. And I think you speak to the point that You said it was everything that I thought it would be, and that makes me think about some people have thoughts about what it is to be an administrator. Listen, them teachers there, you do this and you do that. This is what you do, and they don't carve out. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. But to really, kind of walk in those shoes, and then you have those aha moments, like, oh wow, like this is way more challenging. You get pulled in so many different directions. What is it like being on both sides? Like you were in the classroom and now you're, in an administrator's position, and like, no, like managing that back and forth, because some people get promoted in the same building, so they went from being a teacher to being now the principal in that same school, so it's difficult with there. But like, how do you manage like navigating and all the new responsibilities, not being a teacher, your time being much more challenging to manage? Like, how do you even navigate that? Because there's no really like is there principal training that you go through before you do that?
Not that's going to help us in this regard. There's no class for that. But you know what? I think that question is just so profound in so many ways. And my response is a simplistic one, but yet is my truth, because a daily prayer, once I became an administrator and even to this day, is God, don't let me forget what it's like to be in the classroom. So I was in the classroom and I was with an administrator who was a helicopter administrator. So if you breathe hard, they were there to ask you why. And then I had those that were so lax until I would go weeks and be like, I hadn't seen my principal. Like, what is going on? And so for me, and everybody's walk is different, everybody's story is different, and rightfully so, because we're all unique in our own regards. But for me, when the time came and when I was prepared for such a time as becoming an administrator, my daily prayer was, I never want to forget. So I never want to be the one who gives impossible deadlines or give all of these tasks, and I'm not willing to roll my sleeves up and get my hands dirty and jump in and do what needs to be done, and I'm not willing to be an active listener in situations, and I don't want to be a dictator. That's not my personality now. And so when you keep that in perspective, do I get it right all the time? Absolutely not. But my heart is in the right place. And so it helps me navigate the day to day. So I try to front load any information, no secrets, because again, walking those shoes of a classroom teacher, and you are absolutely right. It's so easy to say what someone else could or should be doing. Or if that were me, I would have done blah, 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 blah. And then you get in that position, it's like, what in the world am I supposed to do? So in situations like that, it really does. Sometimes life has a way of making you eat your words, if you're not careful. But when I keep it at the centerfold of it all, let me never forget what it felt like being in the classroom, because there are so many pressures mounting on educators in today's arena, let alone if you're in what they call a challenging school. That aside, there are so many different tasks and so many different nuances that educators are expected to comply, and demands that they're expected to meet. And I just never want to lose sight of how I felt. And so, in doing so, it helps me to balance things in such a way where it's, what? If I were a teacher, I wouldn't want a faculty meeting on this. I would just appreciate an email. And you know what? That's what they get, an email.
That's good. Now, but that makes me think about, like, is it easy to forget? Like, can you be in the role like a principal? Like, okay, I know I was once in this role, but I'm a principal now, so I gotta kind of like bypass and like forget about, not necessarily forget about it, but that doesn't impact as much as you do right now. Like, is it easy to forget the days when you were once in that role?
You know what? What's sad? It really is. And I think part of that is because we lose sight of why we sought the role to begin with. And I have to be careful in saying, Sometimes people do it strictly just for the title. For me, I said I wanted to do it because I wanted to have a lasting impact on all of the students in the building as opposed to just those who were coming in and out of my classroom. Many, many moons ago, one of my graduate assignments required me to interview a principal. And this is so crazy to say, but in interviewing the principal, the question was, why did you aspire to become a school administrator? The response was, I kid you not, because I'm nosy and I like to be in people's business. Talk about what? And I thought it was one of those moments where I was like, am I being punked? Am I supposed to agree? Like, where do I go? Like, right, exactly. Where are you, Ashton? Any moment now. Come out, buddy. Because there's no way on earth a sitting principal in this moment can verbalize their reasoning, and watch this, to an aspiring administrator. Their reasoning for becoming a school leader was because they were nosy, and being a principal allowed them to be in other people's business. So I say that to say we can lose sight of what it was like, because in education now, for the most part, you are expected to have classroom experience before going into administration. I know sometimes there are extenuating circumstances where that may not, where one may go from classroom teacher directly to principal. It has happened. So there are sometimes stair steps or levels that we can bypass depending on the need or the situation. But for those who truly got in it for the right reason, I will say you still can lose sight, because all of the pressures come down, and sometimes this seat, depending on where you are, where your school district is, it can be a very political seat. And so all of those things start to come into play, and then you're just trying to meet the next deadline, or trying to check off the next task, to where you do forget, wait a minute, once upon a time, I was that teacher, and all of these pressures that I am putting on them, I was once that person and I didn't like it. And so, for that, I do say it is very, unfortunately, and I think it's more common than not, which is why I was intentional. And that, again, we're looking at almost 8 years in school leadership, and that's still one of my ongoing prayers that I just never forget, because once you lose sight of that, honestly, you're out of touch with what you're doing as a school administrator.
We're gonna let that sit. We're gonna we're gonna we're gonna let that sizzle in their spirit a little bit. Uh, so man, that's good. So now you're operating as a principal and doing a absolutely phenomenal job at it. So talk to me a little bit about that transition, and as a middle school principal, like what has been your journey for what did you walk into to now being not only a state school of character, but also a national school of character. As a matter of fact, kudos to you. Kudos to your other administrators. Kudos to all your faculty and staff for all the hard work, and kudos to your students in the community as well. For because obviously it was a collective effort. But talk to me about that journey from the beginning to where you're at now.
I was what you call a pandemic principal, okay? So call me crazy, because I was, resting comfortably in my assistant principal position, get a call to not only become a principal during the height of the pandemic, but also change school districts. So you're talking about leaving my comfort zone, a place I had been for the past 12 years, had forged relationships with people, knew the in and outs of the expectations and all the things. And I get this call, and it's at a school where when you hear the name, people are like, run in the other direction. So for me, it was one of those like, wait a minute, wait, Ashton, where are you? Wait a minute, is this another punk mo? Am I being punked of all the schools, really? And so again, my faith supersedes any and everything I do, because he said, if in all my ways, if I acknowledge him, he gonna do the rest. So it was in that moment where it was like, okay, God, do I accept this position or not? And a scripture, and I referenced it earlier, but in the book of Esther, it talked about she had been prepared for such a time as this, when she had to go in and face the king. And so it was really a mic drop moment, because once I got the call to go to the school, I actually read that scripture that night. So it couldn't have been, the writing couldn't have been more clear on the wall, if that makes sense. And so, again, inheriting a school where, when you hear the name, just the name alone, it's surrounded by negative energy, negative thought processes, just negativity all around. You didn't hear any positive aspects of it at all, in no sense of the word. And so I said, well, Lord, if you want me to do it, here I am. Send me, I'll go. And so I accepted the challenge, I accepted the call. And by it being the pandemic, things were different, so I get there, first couple months, and I'm thinking, oh, what's so bad? Hey, we got this. I'm literally walking around like, oh yeah, this nice building, good people, it seems. And we're going to fast forward a year later. Okay. So now, we're still pandemicking, but some of the restrictions have been released or lifted, if you will. And so now, whereas my first year, I literally only saw half of the students in the building, because they had the option of working remotely and being virtual students. So my first year as a principal, I only saw half of my entire student body, and everybody was wearing a mask. So I didn't know what nobody looked like. I just remember when we got to a point where we didn't have to wear a mask. One of my CMP ladies, and she's so sweet, she said, "Baby, I didn't know your face looked like that under there." And I was like, "Oh God, is that a bad thing?" I was like, "Oh no." So I was like, "Yes, ma'am, this is me." And I walked away thinking, oh my God, I don't know if you, but anyway, you get the point. So now we're out of mask. Students are coming every day. All of the students are back in the building. And within the first 20 days of school, I had 12 fights within the first 20 days of school. And I'm talking not just your run of the mill 1-2 punch and it's over. I'm talking full out brawls. So things that were happening in the community, they were bringing them into the school. So if my uncle got into it with your uncle, I'm going to fight you now, and then all of our cousins are going to jump in. I had a couple of fights that took place outside during after school dismissal on the front lawn of the school, where you have tons of parents lined up to pick up their students. And to my dismay, and this was one of the most disheartening things, was I saw parents getting out of their cars and videoing the fights. And I'm just like, wait a minute, no, this is not what we do. Like, why aren't you helping? If anything, if you're, well, one, stay in your car. But if you're going to get out of your car, if you're going to get out, then at least try to be a mediator and stop it. And we had situations where a parent or whomever, neighbor, would see a student fighting, would call the relatives, the adult relatives who were at home, and say, hey, your baby's up here fighting. They would pack up the car and they would come to the school, and then the other families at the school. It was complete mayhem. That's my story, that's my testimony. It was absolute mayhem. And it was in those moments where, again, I had to remind myself, he prepared you for such a time as this. I just had to keep telling myself, like, because you have those moments where it's like, now wait a minute, God, now I didn't sign up for this. This is not, I didn't go to school all this time to me breaking up fights every day and feeling like I'm gonna break my nails. Those were the conversations I had with the Lord. But, and it was again, okay, we've got to do something. We've got to do something, has got to change because we have inherited a place where our students feel that it's okay. They feel that it's okay. If you step on my toe, I'm just going to punch you in the face, whether it was a mistake or it wasn't a mistake. Or, hey, if something's going on in the community, I'll meet you at school. That literally was the narrative that I inherited. It was one of those things where if we got into it over the weekend, don't worry about it. I'll get you second period when I see you in the hall. And so I knew immediately something had to change. And therein started our school of character journey. No, we weren't on a journey to becoming a state and national school of character. Our testimony just spoke for itself. But I knew that at the end of the day, we want good people. So if I'm saying my reason for being here is to touch and impact the lives of every single student in the building, then my question started being when they leave, what is it that I can say I instilled in them? Maybe they won't know what an adjective is. Maybe they can't tell you what a split infinitive looks like in a sentence. But if at the end of the day, they can tell me they know that they matter and that they have value and that the world truly is their blank canvas and they can paint and write whatever story they want to write along the lines of positivity, then I will be able to rest my head and sleep like a baby at night because I will have known that I've poured something into them that's going to take them beyond the sixth grade, beyond the seventh grade, beyond eighth grade. I'm now investing and I'm now vested in your future. And in order to set myself up, because they are our future nurses and future, dentists and all the things, then I got to help you start by being a good person. And it starts with character.
That's good. That's good. And I think one of the things that I took away from what you just shared was that the self worth and value aspect connected to everything. So the way that I believe about myself is also the way that I carry myself in the world. And so if you can invest in helping them to believe higher, believe better, believe different, then you're also able to impact those behaviors, whether it be academic, whether it be character, that also come along with it as well. And so I know some people may think like, oh, well, that's not the place to start. But I really do believe that that's a great place for you to pour into, and everything else is a byproduct of that. And so now you are, experiencing those days of, being a school of character. And I mean, I've had the opportunity to walk your building, the opportunity to see you all, in the pep rallies, and y'all have your houses over there, and y'all doing your, and man, the energy within Westlawn is so amazing. Talk to me now about when you walk into Westlawn and the narrative that was there, and now the narrative has changed. How does that feel?
Listen, I'll give you an example. So 2 weeks ago, has it been 2 weeks? Yeah, about two, maybe 3 weeks ago now, we had, believe it or not, some educators from all across the state of Alabama. I'm talking about the northern part, the southern part, in Birmingham. They came, we had about 30 collectively. They came and they wanted to know more about our character journey. And so I said, well, you know what? Let me get them to come into house meetings because it's during our house meeting. So we have core values. And in determining those core values, again, we thought along the lines of what do we want to instill in our students that's going to take them beyond middle school. And so it's during these house meetings that we revisit the core values. We talk about what does it look like to be a person of integrity in class, in the halls, in the streets, hanging out with your friends, in church, at the ballpark? What does that character trait look like? And so we had these educators come in on a Wednesday because we have house meetings one Wednesday out of each month, and they were able to go to it. We have six different core values, so six different houses essentially in the school, And they were able to visit every single one just to take some notes and look at, how our students interact with each other. Once we got to our Q&A, I was able to be transparent and let them know that this could not have happened 4 years ago because of where we were culturally with the school, where the mentalities of not only the children in the building but the adults in the building. So we had to have, a complete makeover, a complete U-Haul, if you will, to completely change the mindsets of why we show up each day. We don't show up to fight. We don't show up to get back at whomever. We don't show up to finish what we started over the weekend. We show up with one purpose in mind, and that's to be the best version of ourselves. And so it was in that moment that really spoke volume as to the work that has been put forth and all of the efforts, and having awesome individuals like you come in and pour into not only the student body but into the faculty and staff as well, as we continue on our character journey, because you never arrive, right? Like, you never just wake up and say, okay, I'm everything I want to be, and that's it. Where you don't continue to try to be a better version of yourself. And so just being able to share that testimony with those educators sitting in there, honestly, I was speaking to myself and I said, oh my gosh, we are in a place now where we can do those things, and it's okay. It feels normal, where you don't have to feel like the Joe Clark of East Side High. So we, and again, we're nowhere near where we want to be, but the leaps and bounds that have been made by the incredible, and I do mean incredible, individuals in that building, it's just a testament of what can be done when you have like-minded individuals who just want to do the best we can for middle schoolers.
Right. That's good. I got an interesting question, because obviously there was a vision. There was a lot of work that it took in order for you all to make it to where you're at right now. What type of leader did you have to become for this transformation to take place?
I'm a relationship person anyway. If you can't, I love people. Like, I'm not gonna meet a stranger. That's just not in my DNA, But I had to also understand that when you're coming into a new place, people didn't know me. I wasn't already in the school district, so I'm the outsider, and I have to prove, if you will, myself to everybody, because who is this lady? Where's she coming from? We don't know her. We don't know anything about her. And so with that, I had to, one, be a transformational leader and knowing that change was going to take place, but also I had to be, but it's who I am anyway, so it wasn't something I had to become, but I had to show them that I truly am a servant leader. There is nothing in that building that needs to be done and I hadn't already done it or am not willing to do anything in that building from the bottom to the top. I will do it because that's what servant leaders do. They're there to serve, and I'm in a position to serve others. And so you have to have structure as a leader. You have to have a vision, and you have to surround yourself with like-minded individuals that are committed to doing the work, because it's long and it's arduous, and the journey can, be deflating sometimes when you don't necessarily feel like you're reaping the fruit of your labor, or sometimes it's like I'm spinning my wheels but nothing's getting better. But that's where that resiliency comes in, where it says, okay, Lord, you put me here to bless me here, so I'm gonna stay until a change actually takes place. And so in doing so, my mindset is of being one of those transformational servant leaders, because I'm there for my students. I was just telling someone literally this afternoon, because they were speaking in terms of the discipline and things that they've witnessed in other schools, and, well, we're not hearing your school's name anymore. And I said, look, all I do every day is love on my babies and help them learn a little bit more. That's all I do every day. I'm going to love on them, and I'm going to let them learn a little bit more today than they did yesterday. And believe it or not, that love goes a long way.
A leader of love. I love it. but one thing that I've heard you say is that you're a people's person, so you love people. Obviously, you love students, and so that those things go together. But I've also heard about principles and leadership. It can be like one of those places to where you're on the island by yourself. How does someone that loves people not get stuck on the island? How do you still uh, you know be a leader of the people, but yet be a leader? Does that make sense at the same time too?
That makes perfect sense. Well, I'll say this: the way I do it, one, I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. Okay. I'm never gonna be rude. I'm never gonna be condescending. I'm not gonna be disrespectful. And I'll insert this word too. I'm never gonna intentionally do those things, because have there been moments where I've said something where someone has perceived it as rude or disrespectful? Absolutely. Will I be quick to apologize if you bring it to my attention? In a heartbeat, because that's never my heart posture. But for me to never be on that island, I ain't ever in my office. My superintendent tells me all the time he has to look for me when he comes into the building, because that's why I'm there, right? If I'm there for my students, I can't spend majority of my day in my office doing the day-to-day things, because I mean the bills still have to be paid, so I still have to network with the bookkeeper. There's still going to be emails that come in and different tasks, just in running a school, maintenance still has to be done. So you can get caught up in your office if you're not careful. I'm intentional, and they'll tell you I have a backpack and I'm in the halls, I'm in the classrooms when it's lunchtime. I was just having a conversation the other day with my sister, ironically enough, the younger one, and she was just like, why are you in the cafeteria the whole time every day? Because she's not an educator, so it was one of those things. She was like, why do you do that? Now she's sub before in school, so I know she's seen the principals don't, they're not just hanging out in here. And I told her, I said, you know what, that's the one moment during the day where I can see every single student in my building. I said, I tried, in the mornings, I go up and down the halls to greet them. But if you come in late, I don't see you. If you're in the restroom, I don't see you. If I get caught up on one hall, I may not get to the next hall to greet you. I said, but lunch, I know every single one of my students will walk through that lunch line. And that's the time I get to see them. I get to fist bump them. I get to see the new haircut, the new styles, the new nails that are on. I said, that's my time to sit and chat with them and get caught up. And so, in doing that, an island, what's that? I'm always surrounded by people. But again, you have to have those structures and the processes in place. And once people understand, because I'm a very timely person, they'll tell you the show gonna start whether I'm there or not. I don't do that CP time. It's true. I just that no, not me. If we say we're gonna start, let's go ahead and start. And I've seen that working. I've seen the mindset change. A family came to an event one time. They were 11 minutes late and missed half of it. And they were like, well, what's going on? I said, well, we started at 5. What's 5:11? We started at 5. We started at 5. So small things like that make a huge difference. But once people see, and I try to operate in the spirit of excellence, everything I do, it comes really from a good place. And so in doing that and networking and being out with my students, and I could tell you something personal about everybody in my, or every adult in my building, because I aim to learn and know about them beyond you teach 8th grade math, or you teach strings, or you are a PE coach. I try to learn things about my faculty and staff. And so that alone keeps me off of this island that many principals find themselves on day to day, because it's lonely on an island by yourself. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, that's a now. One thing that I do want to say is that obviously relationships matter, and I believe that you invest in that time into all of these relationships because you are a relational person. That allows for you to be able to have that relational capital that is necessary to be able to encourage, to be able to motivate, whatever it is that you need to be able to do to even discipline at times, because that's necessary too. But, like if you have that relational capital that you've invested, then it's not at a deficit when you say something. It's not a deficit when you correct. Um, do you feel like the fact that you like have relational capital that you invest so much that when you do have to make, tough decisions or when you do have to be stern in moments, like do you see that the bank isn't depleted or it's not what's it called? Like when you what's it called when your bank account going to negative, whatever it's called, you don't have those withdrawal fees that you're getting because you never got that low.
Absolutely. And honestly, you painted the picture in which I strive to live. So if I'm making so many positive emotional deposits into your bank account when I do have to make a withdrawal, once again, you know it's coming from a good place. And I want to tell you the decisions that are made are going to be for the benefit of our students. So if you falling out of line, if I fall out of line, I have to be redirected and I have to be set straight. And so, in doing those things, there will come times where I have to say, wait a minute, got to call you to the carpet because we did something knowingly or unknowingly that we shouldn't have done. But I'm going to love you anyway when we're done. So, it's kind of like, that compassionate parent where at some point you may have to chastise your child. The love doesn't go anywhere. I'm not going to treat you any differently. As soon as we're done, I'm going to give you a hug, or the next day, I'm going to talk to you just like nothing ever happened. But the expectation remains that you have to address whatever it is that we talked about, or you have to not do it again or do more of it, depending on, whatever the situation is. But yes, because I'll give you case in point today. So we had what we call better practice visits. So these are walkthroughs where members of the central office come into the building and we go to various classrooms. We do it all throughout the year. So it's no shock, no surprise. But the ultimate goal is to look at and highlight what's going well and then talk about some next steps. So, hey, you didn't do this well. These are some next steps moving forward. So when we come back in the classroom, these are the adjustments we want to see you make. And so during these visits, we call the teachers out, we have conversations with them and provide them with the next steps. Well, in talking to the team, I said, y'all, this time around, we're not doing that. I said, spring has sprung, testing is looming, and everybody's starting to feel those anxious feelings and the knots are starting to form in the stomachs. Did I do enough? Have I covered all the standards? And I said, this visit, these instructional rounds that we do today will look a little bit different. All we're doing, we're leaving notes of positivity with our teachers. That's all we're doing. We're not giving them any next steps. We're not telling them anything that they didn't do well or didn't do right. All we're doing, leaving notes of positivity. And so our theme has been a Hollywood theme this year, and so all of our students are stars, faculty and staff are stars. So I gave every person on the team star sticky notes, and we had one task as we went into all of those classrooms today: leave a star note of positivity. And on every single one of mine, I left at the end, so I put my anecdote and then I said keep shining. And we take them on their computer screen. So once the period ended and they went back to their desk, they were able to sit and read nuggets of positivity. To me, that's adding to that bank account, that relational bank account, so that the next time when I come in and I'm looking for something specifically, you don't feel like, oh, your world is crashing down, or oh, my principal hates me, or oh, this is going to be a horrible day. No, you're looking at it from the standpoint of, my principal wants me to be the best version of myself, and she's going to continue to operate in the spirit of excellence, whether I like it or not, because that's what we do, right?
I love it. I love it. Another question that I have for you, because we're getting ready to wind this thing down, but what do you think is the most important lesson that you've learned? Or I'm pretty sure there's many lessons, but what is one of the most important lessons that you've learned along your journey that has allowed you to persevere? Obviously resilience is one of those things to where you have challenges, but you have to get back up. Like what has helped you to keep going and keep rising to the occasion, keep excelling, but to keep fighting as well.
That's such a loaded question, and that's really not fair that you asked me that. But I'm gonna do my best to be as succinct as I possibly can. That's not fair, But something that I've learned, and I think we lose sight of it as educators, we have a greater purpose beyond ourselves. I remember it had to have been within my first month of teaching. I had a moment. My students didn't know I had a moment, but I had a moment where I was standing in front of that eighth grade English class. I'm fresh out of college, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I don't teach them, they don't learn it. Like, I'm not preparing them for high school. That weight felt so heavy on my shoulders until it was like every day I show up, I got to give them what I got. If I got 80%, my students going to get 80% today. If I'm operating on 110%, I ain't reserving none of it. They're getting it all because not only am I showing up for them, but I'm now showing up for the purpose that's within me. And we're losing sight of our purpose as educators. And because we're losing that art, we're losing that sight. We just show up, we check the box, we teach the lesson plan, we leave. There's no sense of fulfillment. There's no sense of I've made a difference. Call me crazy, but I always was one. I felt like I needed to be at school because the one day I'm not at school was going to be the day my student just needed me. Now that may be the craziest thing, but that was something I always felt. So I prided myself in never taking off. I was intentional in planning, appointments and all the things around because as educators, we get a good bit of days off. So I was intentional in doing those things. I was intentional in making sure that I was supporting my students. I am intentional. I don't want to speak past tense because those are things that I do. Now I mean, it's expected that I am. Now you had me missing a track meet today. So when they ask me tomorrow why I wasn't there, I'm just gonna get ready to play this recording. I just want to put that out there. Hey y'all, love y'all, do well. Okay. But and so it becomes the expectation where again, I didn't realize they were looking for me. I didn't realize they expected me to be there. I didn't realize the impact that I was making. I was just doing what I know to do, and that was loving on them. Years ago, one of my former students reached out to me, and it was via Instagram, and I was like, this is kind of weird, former student reaching out Instagram, what's going on? And so I took some time, and I know it had to be a God thing because I never do this, but I took time and I called during the school day and I said, hey, I got this message from you to give you a call, is everything okay? And he just took a deep breath and he said, you were the one voice I needed to hear. And I said, hey, what's going on? What are you talking about? And he said, my best friend just left me. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I lost my mom last night. And he said, and you were the one voice I needed to hear today. So now I'm sitting at my desk trying not to bawl my eyes out because I'm thinking, what? I hadn't seen you in years. I had no, I wasn't even thinking along those lines. And he said, I just needed to hear your voice. So, of course, I talked to him. I engaged in conversation with him. I asked him about the funeral arrangements. Never told him that I was going to show up. Never once said, I'll be there, anything of the sort. We got off. I asked him if he needed anything. And so when it was time for the funeral, a couple of days later, because it was at a funeral home, I went to the funeral home. I walk in. He immediately greets me. We walk up to his mom, and we just stand there. And I let him talk to his mom. And I go and sit. And then the family starts coming up, and they're just like, it was you, wasn't it? And I have no idea what they're talking about. And so finally I said, God, somebody has to help me out. What are you talking about? And they said he had been pacing back and forth in that parking lot for 30 minutes. And as soon as you got here, his spirit completely settled. Now, you talk about wanting to come unglued, and the presence of strangers. I didn't know these people. And then I really started thinking, oh my God, it was bigger than teaching English. I was teaching him the value of life and self worth and how to be a good person of character. And I was showing him that my love extends beyond the classroom, it extends beyond the school, so much so to where when your mom died, you wanted to hear my voice to help put you at ease. What? What, are you serious? And so I never want to lose sight of that. I always want to show up for my students. I always want them to know they have someone in their corner. They have somebody cheering them on. They have somebody who's going to let them know when they're wrong and get them back on the right direction and will be there. And I always tell them, if you ever need me, I'm here, and it extends beyond middle school. So that's just one of those things that I've learned. This is bigger than me. It's bigger than me.
It's bigger than us. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than everybody. But we have to stay mindful of that. Well, as everybody can tell, you are this ball of positivity, and I'm so grateful that you like just took the time out of your busy students. It was I apologize that she's not able to, you know. She's not able to, but it's my fault. It's not hers. Okay, I'll make sure I take that responsibility, take that out for you. But with that being said, we're going to end this in every episode. We end with this thing called this segment called "Better Days Ahead," and that's any encouragement, whether it's words of wisdom, whether there's a mantra, whatever it is that you would like to share to our listeners to encourage them that there are better days ahead. Better days ahead. So, do you have anything you like to encourage them with?
I always have some positivity. Listen, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you did yesterday, today is a new day. This moment is a new moment to be the best version of yourselves. And so I encourage you to dig deep down from within and know that there is greatness on the inside of you. Know that you are here for a reason. Know that the world needs you and that you matter. And together, because I'm right here in it with you. You got somebody cheering you on, and I may not even know you, but you have a cheerleader in your corner because greater is He that's in you than he that's in the world. So I encourage you, no matter where you are, no matter what's happening, I'm letting you know that greater is coming for you.
My goodness, my goodness. Um, Thank you, thank you. I appreciate your time. As you can see, while we had Dr. Atkins, I told y'all she's phenomenal, and you all got to experience just a little bit of that. There's definitely more, but we like to end with what we just received from our guests. And so, to everybody out there, doesn't matter what happened yesterday. Keep yourself up, keep fighting. Remember that there are better days ahead for you. You got a cheerleader in Dr. Atkins, and you have a cheerleader in me, rooting you on. Guess what? You can do it. This is another segment of Mindset on Resilience. I'm your host, Daniel Truelove. Until next time, thank you.